The SCP universe. It's likely that you've heard about SCP in one way or another, whether that be through reading SCP entries, or most likely through YouTube, whether that be people going over SCP entries or SCP games and miniseries. It's likely that you heard of this universe. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a while now, and it's something that was on my list, but I kind of held off because I didn't really know if this was a video that I wanted to make. However, given recent events that have recently come to my attention, now is the perfect time to talk about it. In today's video, I'm going to talk about Lord Bung, a YouTube channel that has gone through some controversy relatively recently, but I also think it's important to stick around with this video because it's an issue that's much larger than it appears. In order to talk about this, I'm going to have to start going backwards, starting with Lord Bung. Lord Bung was a YouTube channel on YouTube that was really well known for its series called Confinement. It was an animated series that went over the SCP universe, and it followed the story of D-Class, who is a person that this organization known as the SCP Foundation uses to experiment on things that are considered anomalous, whether that be creatures or viruses, locations, you name it. The SCP universe is filled with all sorts of monsters and things that are outside of the norm. And the Confinement series by Lord Bung follows this D-Class called Connor as he navigates through all of these SCPs, and he also has the uncanny ability of being immortal. So D-Classes are known for dying quite often in the SCP universe, but Connor is different because he immediately is brought back to life, and so that makes him the perfect candidate for a D-Class. This series had a wild amount of success, especially among the SCP fandom and the SCP fanbase, because nobody had really seen an SCP series like this. And there are other YouTube channels that go over SCP entries and make SCP short films, but nobody had actually seen an episodic series until Confinement. And it was a really amazing thing to see as episodes came out on a fairly regular basis, at least in the beginning. That was until, of course, episode 8, which didn't come out for a while. In fact, technically, it never came out. It was about a 4-year gap between episode 7 and episode 8, and the wait for that was it was tense, because the first couple episodes came out at a fairly decent pace, around a couple months, and we all waited anxiously to see the 8th episode come out, something that we've been waiting for so dearly, and promises have been made for this SCP episode 8 to come out, but as time kept going on, people began to lose interest and not stay as focused on when episode 8 was going to come out. Myself included, I forgot about it for a while, up until a week or two ago when I went to go look at the channel, and I found out that the channel had been deleted. Essentially, what happened, or what we think happened, it all kind of started between a controversy that unfortunately happened that Lord Bung was closely related to. And it happened between two fellow YouTubers, Orion and Quite, in which Orion made allegations against Quite, so a very serious situation. The problem was that Orion did not seem to have as much evidence against Quite. In fact, on the contrary, there didn't seem to be that much evidence, while Quite had a ton of evidence and receipts to back up the fact that this claim that Orion made was not true, that it was actually false. I'm not going to go over the details. If you want to look up the Quite and Orion situation, you're welcome to. It's not entirely important to the story. What you do need to know is that Lord Bung was tied into the situation as he tried to be a mediator between the two, and it was unfortunately a very one-sided mediation, with Lord Bung taking Orion's side, and with Orion not having enough evidence and Quite having plenty of evidence to back up the fact that he was innocent. It didn't look good for Orion, and more importantly, it didn't look good for Lord Bung. Now, whether or not the channel deletion happened because of that situation or because of creator burnout, as again, it was a multi-year gap between this 8th episode, we don't really know. You're welcome to draw your own conclusions, but essentially Lord Bung pulled a machinima and tried to delete all of his videos, and on top of that, delete his channel. He did give a 2-day heads up to let them know that, hey, I'm going to be deleting my channel, so all the videos are now saved. And in fact, episode 8 was leaked by Lord Bung himself, which led people to be very excited to see what Lord Bung was working on all this time. And, well, how do I put this? I'm not gonna play the video, but man, how do I even describe this? It's very bare bones, as there's no voice acting or anything, so it's treated more as a music video. It's just the animation with music on top of that. And it's essentially Connor, the D-class, well, there's no easy way to put it. He's having sex with a lot of people. I mean, a lot. Every person. I don't even know if I can describe it in words. If you want to go check it out, I'd look at this compilation video. It's at the very end if you want to watch it. I don't know why you would, but it astounds me because I look at this and I wonder, what's the plot behind it? Even without the voice acting, you'd think that you'd be able to tie some sort of story together to see where was he leaning towards, where was he going towards. I don't know. I don't even think mouths were moving at all. I think it was just... And this upset a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, because there was a multi-year gap between the 8th episode and this was what he was working on, apparently. And it was especially upsetting considering the fact that he had a Patreon, and the reason for his Patreon was so that he could focus on this animation. The reason why there was a giant gap was because he didn't have the money to maintain a living while also working on animations. The first couple episodes had copyright music, so they were claimed, and that's around 60 million views worth of money that he never got. So that's a lot of money that he missed out on, which caused him to get a Patreon, which is understandable if you're working on this project that takes a lot of time. Animation takes a lot of time. However, then the animation, of course, came out, and yeah, people began to wonder what their money was being used for. And I don't think that people got refunded either. So all in all, this fantastic series ended on a very sour note. As I said in the beginning of this video, it goes far beyond Lord Bung and that entire situation. It's much more serious than that because it seems like SCP on YouTube, and dare I say SCP in general, is kind of on its way out. I said I was working backwards because Lord Bung is the latest SCP kind of thing that dropped, but it goes far beyond that because there are other YouTube channels that are just done with SCP, even though SCP is kind of what their content revolved around. SCP Illustrated has been rebranded to Mr. Illustrated and isn't even doing SCP illustrations at all. They've completely dropped it. The Exploring series, which is my personal favorite SCP channel, has started to step back away from SCP content because it's not getting as many views, and as you know, as it being your profession, you need to do what gives you the most monetary value. And it's not because of greed or anything, it's because it's their job, and you're not going to do something in your job if it doesn't help you monetize the most, if it doesn't help you get the most money. And clearly that's a sign that the YouTube algorithm or the audience on YouTube just isn't interested in SCP content. And a couple years ago, an SCP game was coming out, and it was the remake of SCP Containment Breach, which was a wildly popular game, and it's something that bumped SCP fame to where it is today. And somebody tried to remake that, but unfortunately, for whatever reasons, I think the reason they stated was personal family reasons, that game was discontinued and the Patreon refunded. And not to mention, the wiki itself, the SCP wiki, is right now in their own controversy with one of their own admins, Dr. Bright, who was one of the most popular characters and admins on the wiki. And you can look that up too. That one's a much more serious thing that you can look into. I'm not going to go over it in this video. Point being, it seems like SCP content on YouTube and SCP content in general is on its way out. And it's unfortunate because it's such an incredible series with such incredible and talented writers that you can find anywhere on the internet. As long as your stuff is good, you can make it on the wiki. But SCP now is not SCP as it was. If you look at the SCP on YouTube now, it's usually these big corporations who are looking for a quick cash grab and just go over a certain select amount of stories. And it's not the same because I've watched a couple of these and either information is done incorrectly or changed, which with a fandom as fiercely loyal as the SCP fandom, that upset a lot of people. And personally for me, I've started to walk away from SCP, not only because of games that are no longer being made and content creators that are no longer as active, but also because the SCP wiki itself is changing. The type of content that was made back then was a lot more simple in a way. The SCP wiki is known for being notoriously strict with its content. Anything subpar is not allowed. It has to be extraordinary. And with all of these things that have already been put on the wiki, it's hard to make a new entry without it almost being a copy. And so with the most recent SCP entries, it's all kind of conceptual kind of entries. Instead of it being monsters or locations, it's like a sense that you never knew or some kind of thing that's beyond human comprehension. And that's not as fun to read, and it's, I don't know, it's different, and it definitely fits into the SCP kind of thing, but it's almost too much, I guess. And that's just my personal opinion. Is the SCP Foundation and the SCP Wiki making its way out the door, especially on YouTube? I don't know, but it certainly seems like it, unfortunately. With the type of content that's now being made, and it now being done by big corporations instead of small YouTubers who do it not for profit but for passion, it seems like it might be on its way out, and the wiki by extension. I just don't know. Right now, I think we're all going to have to just wait and see what happens. Maybe the algorithm will change, and maybe the SCP Foundation will come back with a vengeance on YouTube. But we're just going to have to wait. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, if indeed you still are. My name is Brockster, and I bid you all adieu.